Welcome to the Designated Drinker Show, the podcast that's raising the bar on craft cocktails. I'm your host, Louise Solis, and with me, as always, is my very, very talented friend who has fiercely followed her passions, the mixtress, DC, Gina. Hey, Gina.
Hello, Louise. How are you?
Hi, lovely. I'm good. How about you?
Good. I'm visiting. I feel like a haunted bar at this point because we've been closed for so long.
I know. Where are you? Today. Tell everyone where you are. I'm sorry.
I'm at our closed, unfortunate, beautiful dive bar in the heart of the Union Market District in Washington, D.C. Last call. And when we reopen, I can't wait to cheers with everybody.
Absolutely. We, for those of our loyal listeners, know that's where we would set up shop to record the podcast. So I miss getting a little tipsy on all those bar stools.
Right? We'll get there.
We'll get there. Okay, so speaking of people who work in the food and beverage industry, many actor has taken a job as a bartender, a waiter, or whatnot in the food and beverage industry, right? All waiting for their stardom, get their lights, name in the lights. But did you know there's some crazy odd jobs people have taken? Did you know that Whoopi Goldberg started out as a beautician? But the really crazy thing is that eventually she became a mortuary beautician. Kind of set her up for Ghost, awesome. I don't know. And then staying in that vein, Rod Stewart. Rod Stewart started off as a grave digger in London. Yeah, maybe that's why his hair stood up all the time. I don't know. So, and now go on to a heartthrob of my own, or man after my own heart, would be John Hamm, of course, because he was Don Draper on Mad Men. But before that, he had a few creative jobs as well. Of course, he was a high school teacher. Who cares about that? But here's the funny part. He was a set dresser on a porn film.
Yes. Now we're talking. What does that even mean? Is the lube close enough to the bed? I mean, what does that mean?
It's continuity. It's very important that your lube is where it was in the last shot. It's very difficult job, actually, but that was a lot of meat flapping around with John Hamm.
I feel like I love him more now, just because.
Talk about fearless. So this leads me to Channing Tatum. Easy for me to say. And there's a little bit of foreshadowing for him. After dropping out of University of South Florida, he went off to do what? Yes, he was a stripper. So he played a stripper and he was a stripper. That wasn't a hard leap.
He was a damn good looking stripper, but move on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those abs, good Lord. And for a white boy, he had some moves. So going on to staying in the strip vein, let's go to Mr. Brad Pitt, my fellow Missourian. He was not a stripper, but I don't even know what this really means, but he drove strippers around in limousines. Like he was their driver. I don't know where he was driving them to. That's what it sounded like to me. Taking them to their special date.
If you're an escort, you're a pimp. It's not that hard to figure out.
Pitt.
Yeah, Big Daddy Pitt. That'd be even fucking funnier.
So he went from driving hens around to actually being one himself. He dressed as a chicken for El Pollo Loco's TV commercials when he first got to LA.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Funny, huh? Yeah. And now he's like Mr. Brad Pitt, for God's sakes. So there's hope yet. So speaking to all those people who have followed their dreams and followed their passions and let life unfold in front of them and kind of lead them, which is amazing, into great stardom, into amazing places. Let's introduce today's designated drinker, shall we? Shall we?
Yes, of course. I'm just staring at him, so let's just do it.
You're like, who is that over there in that little box? So for our listeners, that's our Zoom we're referring to, because otherwise it's kind of odd. So
different show.
Let's get this show back on the rails. It's already gone. Let's introduce today's designated drinker. He's the actor, speaker, and storymaker, Gregor Collins. Welcome to the show, Gregor.
Speaking of strippers, I'm here, ladies. No.
Yay!
Thank you for having me. It's
great. Gina, it's time for you to make it rain like you normally do.
I mean, during COVID times, we can't use dollars, so I'll have to just throw card numbers at you.
Yeah,
I don't know.
PayPal. Where do you
Your
put your
Venmo numbers.
card?
His Venmos.
So, Gregor, tell us how your life journey. How did you get? I mean, you've got this really cool story. You and I've got to speak a little bit, and I'd love for our listeners to find out, like, how you have really let the universe kind of build this amazing career, and where it's taken you into some very unexpected and unusual spaces.
Yeah, I think from a very early age, my biggest fear, I just never wanted to really blend in with anybody. I always felt a little bit on the outside. Like I had a lot of different friends, and I could like be friends with a lot of people and sort of be the guy that's in multiple circles. But I always felt a little on the outside. Like I wanted to just observe things. And it took me a while to grow up, and I don't know. I mean,
I'm still really working on that part.
Yeah. Well, who really knows what their identity is in their entire life? But like, it took me a while. I was a late bloomer because I just, I don't know. And my dad kind of, we moved around a lot. And so I think it was natural for me to be in the creative world because I wasn't, I didn't really have any strong male role models. So I just kind of like crafted my own life. And I thought I just kind of like built my own homegrown way of living and looking at the world.
That's awesome. But so you started off in college in Florida, right? Speaking of, just like Mr. Tatum, huh? Were you stripping down there too?
Oh, did he? He went to, where did he go? Florida State or
he went to, let's see, my notes say University of South Florida.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I went to Florida State, and so I went to 3 different colleges, and I played golf in high school, and so that was my big thing, and I was like most comfortable on the golf course. Everything outside of the golf course, I was a little confused by, but like, so I played golf in college for the first 2 years in Ohio, and then I transferred to Florida State, and then sort of hung up the golf clubs, and then got into media and TV and all that.
So did you originally go to school for acting, or did you go for production? That's kind of our world.
Yeah, I never started off, I was never an actor. I majored in media production at Florida State. So I had a teacher my senior year of college where he taught a media production course, and he knew, so when I graduated, I knew I wanted to be in the entertainment world, but I didn't know what or where. So he knew a couple of guys who created the show called Blind Date. I don't know if you remember that show.
I do.
With the thought bubbles.
Excuse me. I love that show. And I knew a whole bunch of people from Long Island that were on that show.
Really? So, yeah. I think everybody either knows somebody who's on that show or knows somebody who knows somebody. But this teacher happened to know these guys that created this show called Blind Date. This is around 2000. And he's like, I'll put in a good word for you, and so he contacted them. Basically, like I had to interview with them in person. So I just had one interview in LA, not knowing anybody else but the person with whom I'm interviewing for the show called Blind Date. And that's all. And I had $1,000 to my name, and I had a Geostorm. And so
which is lucky it didn't tip over.
I'm lucky. Yeah, no, I didn't even know. Good thing I didn't know, because I would have been paranoid driving the thing around. But I drove that across country, and I met with the person with Blind Date, and I got the job. And so my family, pretty much my adult family, all starts with the show Blind Date. And I started as a tape librarian and became a producer. And then I, was a freelance reality TV producer for the next 4 or 5 years.
So wait, what? I'm assuming a tape librarian. What is a tape librarian? So I cannot assume.
Well, it's basically, that was back when we had VHS tapes.
When we still had film.
Yeah. So I was in charge of, we had so many dates. We had like hundreds of dates that we needed to keep filed. Ironically, actually, my first job when I was 16 was at a library, and I got fired for putting the books back wrong. I just put them back anywhere. I had no respect for anything. And so ironically, now I'm 16. A tape librarian. Yeah, I know. But now I'm a tape librarian, and I got promoted. So I turned it around. But so it was fun. And then the guys that created Blind Date also created other shows. Like there was a show called Fifth Wheel. There was a show called Chains of Love, where this guy over the weekend would be chained to 4 women for one weekend. And they had to be chained all weekend and get along. And
what channel was that on?
That I don't know. You can look at it. It may still be airing somewhere, but that was. I mean,
I was going to say it was probably the same channel that John Hamm's porn star porn film was on.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And in fact, we did have. There were some. I remember there was actually this was Fifth Wheel. There was an actual porn star that we didn't know was a porn star, and there were two porn stars in an episode, and they started full on going porno on the camera. So that's on the Too Hot for TV version of that. But
that's
maybe John Hamm was.
I loved those videos. Like when you used to buy the videos, and they would send it to you like the TV because you couldn't put it on TV for the cuts. Like I was a kid when all this stuff was happening. So like we would get this like, you know, one of your friends' parents obviously didn't know that they used a credit card to do whatever. So like you would go to that friend's house and like watch everything. And then I would go to like church on Sunday with all my Catholic guilt and be like, I don't know what I did and whatever, you know. I mean, I knew exactly what I was doing, but I definitely fell into that Catholic guilt because my mother, I've always felt like she like had like a second set of eyes on the back of my head and always knew everything. I can't even believe blind date. I'm going to tell all my friends. I'm going to be like, no way, you watched that show.
And I met actually one of the contestants. I remember I was in the tape library and that was my first girlfriend in LA. She was she got on the show and then she was like, dipped her head in the tape library and was like, oh, so this is where, you know, all the magic happens or whatever. And we got into a conversation and she ended up being my girlfriend for the next 8 months.
Oh, love in the library.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect name for it.
But you were, what other reality shows? There was a...
Then I went, Ripley's Believe It or Not was fun.
That sounds like loads of fun.
Oh, it's loads of fun. I remember I found this 6'6", this 12-year-old who was 6'8" in, I don't remember which state. And and he was nicknamed Baby Shaq. And I actually contacted Shaq's people and we actually got Shaq to fly out to LA and we had him shooting, we had the kid shooting hoops at just a random private basketball hoop. And we had Shaq sneak up behind him. And remember, this guy's 12 years old at 6'8", sneak up behind him and he goes, hey, can I play? And the kid turns around and he sees Shaq there. It was great.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Fun show. And then I did random things. Like I did a Girls Gone Wild tour, which was really random. It's definitely not something I studied for.
I wish everybody could see Gina's face right now.
That was also the other videotapes my friend used to buy and we used to watch at their house.
Well, if you don't know what Girls Gone Wild is, then you're not missing it. I had a friend that was like, hey,
girls on that show in Mexico when we were in college, like
oh my God.
Girls Gone Wild 9 or something ridiculous, Cancun. I went to University of Maryland, so we were like probably a huge amount of girls that actually went down to spring break and were filmed.
Oh my gosh. Well, it might have been the tour I was on, but
do you mean I have to dig them up and see if I can see your boobies, Gina?
Mine? No way. I didn't do anything wrong ever. My mother to this day is always in the back of my mind. So before I do anything, I'm like, oh, she's going to know.
I know. I didn't tell my mom. I told her I was working on a Travel Channel show or something. I definitely didn't tell her.
Well, the chances of her seeing you are pretty slim, I would hope.
I would hope.
Is there a story there?
No. No, thank God. But that was actually a really impactful trip because on one hand, it was like a guy's dream. Oh, he gets to see, boobies every night and carry around a clipboard and wear a Girls Gone Wild t-shirt. But on the other hand, I was the only legitimate producer there and I had to keep control of what it was, a group of kids who just wanted to like get laid and then maybe film a few things and get laid and drink. And they didn't want to work. And Joe Francis, the head of Girls Gone Wild.
I was just going to ask you what his name was.
Joe Francis. Yeah. Who unfortunately I had to deal with a lot. And who somehow gave me the keys to the kingdom. But I had to, he would yell at me every night and threaten to fire me and say, where's the footage? So I had to get these guys that didn't want to work and just wanted to drink and shoot footage and get him the footage and FedEx him the footage every day. I mean, it was really stressful.
There was a season where you guys definitely were in New Orleans for Mardi Gras. Were you there?
Well, what? Yeah, I was there, but what year?
2004.
Tell me what. Okay, yes, I was there in 2004, I think. So I was in New Orleans. Yeah.
So my good friend was a couple, and they were definitely on the show, and they were on the stage, and I now have to find the footage because they were dressed up in the craziest sexual outfits ever with dildos and fake boobs and everything, and we were at the place with the mechanical bull, and it was filmed.
Yeah.
And it was on the video. Come on.
We were there. You're talking about you're talking about Girls Gone Wild, not Blind Date, right? Girls Gone Wild.
Yeah.
No, I was there. I remember the bowl, and I was also, and there were times where I was in the Playboy suite of a hotel with Paris Hilton and Joe, and having and like I was like, how did I end up here? I'm sitting on a couch with Paris Hilton and Joe Francis, and like what the hell is becoming my life? So yeah.
And my friends were the animals on your videotape, which now I am going to call them when I get off the phone.
Oh, you have to. Yeah, who knows? I might.
Meanwhile, they're married, kids, everything. Wow. And like those pictures, they'll sell us all down the river, but what are you going to do? Wow. I'm not on that video. They are. But we were all there. There was like 15 of us. That's so funny. World. I will pull it up and send it to everybody.
Please.
That's hilarious.
That is so funny. I wonder if you ever remember when you see it, or you're going to be like, you can't forget it. It was one of those things. I don't know.
And who knows, you may see me in the background running around trying to get camera guys to shoot.
It's so funny.
That clipboard I was so powerful with that clipboard. And I had free Girls Gone Wild t-shirts and a clipboard. And everybody, it was like I was walking around like I was a rock star. It was crazy. Yeah.
It's awesome. That's funny. So speaking of doing crazy things when you first got to LA, you had to take a kind of an odd job, right? That led to something amazing.
Yeah. So I lived like 3 lives in LA. So I got to LA, got on Blind Date, worked for reality TV. Then I decided to quit reality and become an actor. And I remember I was in an acting class, and the teacher, after I did a 2-minute scene, it was a David Mamet play. And the teacher said, "Gregor, I just want to know, how long have you been acting?" And I said, "Oh, about 2 minutes. I really, this is new to me. I don't even, I was really just not confident in anything." And the teacher said, I would have thought you'd been acting for years, and I think you got a lot of talent and stuff. So that really encouraged me. So I ended up pursuing acting. And this was around the time when crowdfunding was starting, Facebook was starting. So we really took advantage of gaining audiences through social media. And we were one of the first films ever funded by Kickstarter. And so that was the sort of the DIY indie film movement. And then in 2008, my friend called me in early 2008 and said, "Hey, Gregor, I answered an ad on Craigslist for a caregiver position, and I'm now a caregiver for a Holocaust survivor." And so he would tell me about her over weeks, and I was sort of just hear about all this. And then finally he says, "We need another caregiver. I know you're not a caregiver, you're not certified, but you're the only friend I trust. So I want you to come meet this woman and see if you like her and want to work with her." And so I finally did. And that one meeting in that kitchen, in that Beverly Hills kitchen with this 92-year-old Holocaust survivor, set my life on a totally accidental course.
So, but how long did you live with her then, or take care of her? Did you live in the house then? I'm assuming.
Didn't live with her. I actually lived in Hollywood, and I would commute every day. Tom, the friend who got me the job, he would live there and take care of the nights, and then I would come in the morning and the day. Yeah.
So you ended up taking that one step further, though, right? Meaning this propelled your career. This was a life-changing moment. Yeah?
I guess this propelled a career, but it really propelled me as a human into blossoming into who I really was. And I think Maria brought all these, I ended up writing a book about it. And all these years I've been writing about Maria and talking about Maria after her death. Every time I talk about Maria, I feel like my real self. And I felt like when I was caregiving for her in such a cold-hearted world as the entertainment world in LA, I would come into her house and it would just be like this a relic from the past. And my life was, those 3 years with Maria was probably the greatest 3 years of my life. So she died 3 years later, and I wrote a book about it. And we always talked about going to Vienna together, but she was too, old, she would say. And so I went to Vienna after she died, and I finished the book in Vienna, going to all these places that we wanted to go together, but she couldn't go with me. So it really had a huge impact on my life. I loved her probably more than anyone aside from my mother, I would say.
That's amazing. And you failed to tell us the name of the book.
Yeah. Oh, the book is called The Accidental Caregiver.
Nice.
But I think all caregivers are accidental. So it's not like that's anything special, but it was truly not something I planned to do.
You're a better human than I am. I have a plan for this. I'm assuming I'm going to outlive my husband, and he's 20 years Air Force. So I'm like, as soon as he starts to break down, I'm wheeling him back to the VA, and I'm like, you broke him, you get him back.
Okay.
So I think that's the best way to do it. I'm an asshole, though.
Yeah, I hope he's not listening.
Oh, I tell him all the time. Gotta set expectations, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's gonna love that so much, but I could totally see you doing it and being like, "Well, I'm gonna go and drink tequila now with my new young friend."
We'll just be friends.
I think it takes my mother. I'm listening to what you're saying about the caregiving of somebody that age and like what it takes to do. My mother recently passed away, and my sisters and I took care of her. And we had two people that were around the clock nurses, and it is a special human that can give so much of yourself to somebody that is. My mother had dementia and was sick, and I'm going to definitely read your book now because I'm still trying to search for all the answers of what happened in the last 7 years, because you did go from being your mother to being your child, almost a child relationship with all the kindness and that feeling. And I always find it amazing the people that can take that much of themselves and apply it to people that are sick like that, or old, or need so much attention, because you do become 100% intertwined with their life, and I find that beautiful, really.
Well, she was lucky to have you take care of her.
Yes. It was very frustrating when it's your mother. It must have been a different relationship for you, but when it's your mother, it's very frustrating because you keep reverting back to, that's my mother.
Right.
And she should be able to do all of this. What are you doing? And you get very frustrated. And that's why people like yourself become very pivotal in that relationship, to keep the boundaries of, yes, this body is your mother. The mind is no longer the same.
It's true. I had the advantage of coming from the outside, but I totally understand where you're coming from. And that is the importance of having that. It's also important to have, I think, a youthful energy, or, someone on the outside and who's young or has youthful energy, because I found that Maria developed dementia towards the end. And really the only way to sort of combat that was just to keep her mind stimulated with fun, youthful things, playing Scrabble, going out to lunch. And so I felt like I was prolonging her life just by being there.
I would say I wasn't there, obviously, but I would imagine it's more than just prolonging. You probably fulfilled. You really
fulfilled.
Yeah, I would imagine that and to your point, not being your mother, or there were less expectations. You could see it from a little bit of a distance.
Right.
Even though you loved her a great deal, it came with less of, I need my mother to identify I'm her daughter, which is a very different space.
Right. Yeah. And the kids definitely, at Maria's funeral, I felt like I was having an impact on her life, but at their funeral, her daughter Margie came up to me and she said, Gregor, I just want you to know that you were my mother's last great love.
Aww.
And so that every time I think about that, I just broke down in tears in front. I mean, it just, to know that you impacted somebody else is so much more affecting than anything on earth.
Absolutely.
Really.
Absolutely. So it was a inspiration behind a movie, right? Am I wrong? Is my research off?
Yeah. So there's a movie called Woman in Gold, which came out in 2015, and Helen Mirren plays Maria. And so that was made by the Weinstein Company when they were together, and BBC Films. So that was about how she owned her family owned some famous Klimt paintings.
Yes.
And so that was sort of a courtroom drama about how she got these paintings back, which took, 10 years of legal battles. And then I met her. So that ended in 2006, where she got all these paintings back, which basically turned the art world upside down. And she sold the gold portrait for, at that time, was a record of 135 million, which now pales in comparison to what paintings are being sold for. But I met her, so that ended in 2006, and I met her in 2008, 2 years after she just now could be like an old woman. Like, she had gone through 10 years of this fighting another country for paintings, and now she could be her, the 92-year-old lady that a normal 92-year-old would be. And then that's sort of when I entered and was able to be a part of her life. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Wow. That's amazing. Honestly. Did you get to see those paintings in a house?
No, they weren't in her house, in 2006. So there were 5 Klimts. Okay. And so the gold portrait, which was of her Aunt Adele, that was sold in a private sale to Ronald Lauder, Estee Lauder's son. And he called her on her phone in her kitchen and said, "Hey, I want to buy your painting." So the other 4 Klimts went in auction at Christie's auction house. So she had, of course, copies in her house, but, the originals in the gold portraits in New York at the Neue Gallery right now. So
did you think that she had any of them in her house? Sorry.
Did she have that? No, she didn't have any of them in her house, but she had a lot of incredible, like, she had scent bottles and watches from like the 16th and 17th century, like sort of in a case on her wall, and all these kinds of relics from her.
That's amazing. Did you think the portrayal of her was it knowing her?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't really. It was half accurate, and I think Helen Mirren, if you're going to choose actresses over 70 that could play Maria, Helen Mirren would definitely be in the conversation. But I think she has this sort of genteel Britishness about her, and there were certain aspects of her portrayal that, the wit, the sort of the Churchill-esque wit, and the sort of the quirky sense of humor. But Maria was just like a basket of puppies on a sunny country porch. I mean, she was just she was like a little child, and so you didn't see that childlike curiosity from Helen Mirren. But, the fact that the movie was made is a blessing for everybody, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How about we cheers to that, Gina? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm ready for a cocktail.
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to hold on. Let me make sure that you can see what I'm doing, as I have a different Yep, we're good. Right? Everyone can see?
Yep.
Great. So I was told that you really loved whiskeys, and we really haven't made a lot of Scotch drinks on the show, but we definitely make a lot of bourbon drinks.
Okay.
So whether you have bourbon or Scotch, you can pick.
Okay.
And we're going to make either, basically we're gonna make either a perfect Manhattan, or we're gonna make Rob Roy's. And for me, I'm going to make a Rob Roy today, and I'm gonna use the Black Bottle blended Scotch whiskey. And a Rob Roy is a classic cocktail. And if you watch, any of these TV shows where the Manhattan or, Old Fashions or Rob Roy's are being portrayed in the 60s or the 50s, you'll see that, they're around. But this is such a great cocktail for, starting off the happy hour, if you will, or cocktail hour at 4:00, or you just had a really stressful day.
Or
but it's
1
when it's
o'clock.
made correctly. What?
Or 1 o'clock.
Yeah. But when made correctly, the Scotch actually takes on more of a perfumed value in a drink, instead of it being such a daunting, peaty or smoky flavor. All right, so we're gonna start with the drink. So we're gonna do 2 ounces of Scotch or bourbon. And then this drink takes a different stance, because we're going to do 1/2 ounce of white vermouth or a blanc vermouth, and then we're going to do 1/2 ounce of red vermouth, and I'm using the Dolan Rouge for 1/2 ounce. So when you put together the two half, you're actually creating what they call a perfect Rob Roy, or if you're doing this with your bourbon, you're making a perfect Manhattan. So now we have this in our glass. Now you can make the choice at this time to put a little bit of bitters in there if you want to like iron it out and put like maybe like a dash or two of like an orange bitters or Angostura. I'm gonna actually keep it clean and just keep just the vermouth and the scotch in mind and finish my drink with a twist. Sorry, we're in a COVID environment, so I have to get my ice in a different area.
Yeah.
All right, so put a little ice in here, my glass. And now we're gonna fill up my stirring glass about 3/4 of the way. And we're gonna stir. Since my room is so cold, we're gonna do about 30 rotations. You know, it might get a little bit more, but it's pretty cold to start. I kept my vermouth inside the refrigerator always because it's a fortified wine and it doesn't really like heat.
I'm so happy to have an excuse to drink at 1 PM, to be honest.
Perfect, right?
I like your stirring spoon there, Gregor. Nice improvising.
Yeah, it's actually like a silver knife.
All right, you guys keep stirring for one more second because I know that you're not in 68 degrees.
Nope.
And I'm gonna grab one thing.
Smells so good. Smells like fun.
Yeah, it does.
All right, and then we're going to take lemon.
Yep.
And I'm gonna do just like a little dime. You can see I'm just cutting it really, this little dime, like coin off of the lemon. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it, right? So you pull it off.
Yep.
And we're gonna dump the ice that's in here.
Good time.
And we are going to take our cobbler strainer, put it into our stirring glass, and we are going to pour our drink.
Strain.
And then we're gonna take our little dime of lemon and we're gonna zest it around the top. And then one time touch the lemon to the rim of the glass, and you can either discard or put it in, whatever you'd like. But that is a perfect Rob Roy.
Wow. I don't know if mine's going to be perfect, but it's...
Well, the perfect implies that it is with sweet and dry vermouth.
Yes.
And we will cheers.
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 Cheers, everybody.
Here's to 3 wonderful ladies.
Aw.
Yay. Oh, this is really good.
So
Yummy.
you guys, who used what? So my scotch has got a really nice heathery flavor to it. So it's almost like wildflowers. What did you use, Louise?
I used scotch as well, and I used and I did not use bitters because I've never had a Rob Roy, so I really wanted to try it clean and see a more classic approach and just follow your lead on that. So it's really, I like the savoriness of this, and you're right, which you usually are, but it does take that peatiness out of the scotch. It just rounds it out.
And then Gregor, you used whiskey, correct?
I actually used whiskey. I used Maker's Mark whiskey and an extra dry vermouth. I didn't have a sweet vermouth, but I have dry vermouth and then.
Oh, so that's more of like a they call that a Kentucky summer. It's a Kentucky summer Manhattan.
That's what I made, and then of course
Kentucky summer.
That's what, I knew I was making that. That's why I didn't have sweet vermouth. And then I had the lemon juice and everything. It tastes very good. I'm very into it.
I love it. You made like an extra dry version of with a little bit of citrus pop. Yeah. I love that. That is so great. Now I'm gonna like another step of this, and then
a drink unplanned, just like your life.
I wish I was in a bar right now. I'm jealous of Gina.
Oh, I know.
Soon. I'm gonna have a little. I think I'm gonna do like a little soiree just to welcome everybody back. You know, when we're allowed to bring people 50% in, just people I know, just because we are out of everything. So I want people to walk up and be like, "Can I get a?" Because we're probably not gonna have it.
The people who love you nonetheless, right?
I'm totally there. Name the date. I need to get out. I just moved here, and then the pandemic happened, so I need to get out and explore.
Yeah,
That's the
we were
worst.
talking about this. He's like, it's not a good time to get out, and I'm moved to a place because I can't get. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if you've just moved here or not. You can't go out anyway.
Right. I know, but it just adds. It's just like moving to a new city is hard enough, but
it is. It is. So what? From LA, you went cross country, right?
Yeah, I did the same thing. So out of high school, I drove across country to LA. I'm sorry, out of college. And then I drove back. So I've driven across country twice, which I highly recommend. Has anybody
In the
ever
same
here
Geo?
ever driven? No. In this time it was a Toyota Scion.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever driven across country?
100%. I don't want to do that.
No. Tell me it wasn't one of the greatest week of your life.
So we did it in over a month. So we did it I think it took us, we did 6 weeks, maybe 5-6 weeks. Here's when we moved back to the mainland from Hawaii. We started in San Diego, did week on the coast. And then we did Santa Fe, we stayed in a stunning place in Santa Fe. And we had our 2 dogs with us too, which was really great.
That's great.
And then we stayed at the Grand Canyon. But the funny thing is that because they had the 2 dogs, you have to plan where you're going to stay. Well, we went from this amazing place in Santa Fe to when we got to the Grand Canyon, you don't really have very many options that are dog friendly. And we actually stayed at the hotel or the motel you always see in the movies with the tomahawk that's neon.
And old Chevy Chase movies or something.
Exactly. Yeah. That was the only place we could stay with the dogs. It was hilarious. It was terrible, but it was,
awesome.
Just where we stayed wasn't the nicest there. But other than that, it was such a great time. It was such a great time.
Gregor, I took my longest road trip ever last summer with just Louise.
Where'd you go?
I love Louise, but I hated that trip.
We only traveled from Nashville to Bay St. Louis, which took us 13 hours. And then an hour the next day to New Orleans, an hour or so.
Wow.
We just had we got a little. I feel like
if I was in an Airstream, dressed in appropriate 1960s attire, and we were dressed and we were putting out flamingos in a park, and there was cocktails at 4, I would have been so much better off. But this was for real. We stopped, we went to a rest stop. It was too much.
Yeah.
And I'm not hoity-toity. I'm in a bar like this. I just don't love it.
The whole thing is she's like, let's find some tourist places to stop. And I'm like, no, let's get to the other side.
Yeah, no, the exact opposite. Let's get the hell there.
Yeah. And she's like, isn't that other city really close? And I'm like, it's 4 hours the other direction.
Yeah, no. I would have been like you. I would have been like, let's keep going. Yeah.
I'm from New York. I think everything's 20 minutes from you. I don't know.
Well, maybe we'll talk outside of the show about New York because I drove actually this time. First, I drove the bottom portion through Santa Fe and all that, and then going to New York, I drove the top portion. So I went through Montana and stopped at the
big sky country,
Yellowstone National Park. Because I did what you I think started doing. I drove up the coast to I have friends in Washington State, so I drove up the coast, San Luis Obispo, along the PCH up to Oregon beaches. And then I took a right turn and went to New York from Washington. So.
Made a right turn. Made a right turn.
Made a right. That's it. And then the rest of the way didn't even turn.
Yeah. Did you go through North Dakota or South Dakota?
I went through, was it north?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, no. Well, which one? Mount Rushmore. Is that south or north?
South. That's South Dakota.
Okay. So I went through south. Mount Rushmore. Yeah.
There's a little bit more to see in South Dakota than North Dakota. Not by much. That was our first duty station was North Dakota. Yeah, that was special. That was really special.
Louise.
Yes.
Do I get to ask my question now?
If you like.
Is it time or are we gonna
You go ahead, you do it. No, actually we gotta do some housekeeping first. Little Miss Bossy Pants. So tell me where we're gonna get this recipe.
So we're gonna go to designateddrinker.show.
Wait, where?
designateddrinker.show for all of the how-to tips, tricks, and Louise's personal phone number.
Now is the time for your question.
Okay, so I get one question at the end of every episode, and here it is. So for me, in this world, everyone identifies themselves with some sort of spirited animal, and you might identify yourself with a hummingbird, constantly wings flapping in the air, but you could see yourself completely, still in the environment, but you're still moving a mile a minute. if you can identify yourself by a spirited ingredient, what would it be and why?
A spirit ingredient? You mean ingredient of any, whether it be
spirited? So it could be anything you use in food or a cocktail.
Any
so it could be like
food or cocktails.
Anything. Yeah, your favorite ingredient.
That's a good question. Are you asking everybody or just me?
Just you.
Oh, it's special for you on this episode.
That's a great question. Oh my gosh. I hope we can edit this.
You can.
Wait, an ingredient. It's so funny you mentioned hummingbird, by the way, because I do consider myself a hummingbird. And there was that talk where the author said you're either a hummingbird or a jackhammer. You either jackhammer away at one thing in your life, or you're a hummingbird and you like to pollinate all the flowers. And I feel like I'm like a jackhammering hummingbird, but but
out of context.
I love everything about that. And honestly, as you talk, these things come to my head. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to know your
ingredients. So what could be like the hummingbird equivalent?
No, what ingredient can you like anything?
Yeah. So it could be
it could be sriracha.
Herb,
it could be anything.
It could be a spirit.
It's not anything crazy or creative, but like I put olive oil in everything. I could drink olive oil for breakfast every morning. Like I eat so much olive oil and like avocados and so I would say olive oil. Like
versatility.
Yeah, it's versatile. I put like there's literally nothing. Even a dessert, I would put olive oil on a plate and a bowl of ice cream. Like there's nothing it wouldn't go well on. And I use it in place of butter all the time. I probably go through a bottle of olive oil like once a month, like a big bottle.
He's one slippery little fellow.
You're gonna live forever.
I have good skin, and I have good, something.
We're assuming you have good hair.
When I meet you in person, I will judge the skin. All right.
Cheers to living life as it unfolds. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, ladies. This has been great.
The Designated Drinker Show is produced by Missing Link, a podcast media company dedicated to connecting people to intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Missing Link is a proud partner of Hearing Charities of America, a nonprofit organization that supports those who are deaf or hard of hearing. To learn more about HCOA or to find out about Missing Link's other podcasts, head over to missinglink.company. That's missinglink.company.